The initial part of rotational dynamics where we calculate the moment of inertias, they will be more like calculation of the center of mass of the body. But then once we go into dynamics, it will change a lot. Right? Rotational dynamics officially becomes the last chapter in mechanics and the largest chapter. It is as big as conservation of momentum. Conservation of momentum जितना time लिया, rotational dynamics भी उतना ही time लेगा. Now, first thing we define in rotational dynamics is omega is d theta by dt, radians per second. Omega is omega naught plus alpha t. Omega square is omega naught square plus 2 alpha theta. Theta is omega naught t plus half alpha t square. Alpha is d2 theta by dt square, radians per second square. For every rigid body, this will be applicable, something that you people are aware of. Take it down till here, we will go ahead. Omega is angular velocity.
Noted, sir. Sir, wait.
So for any rigid body, no?
For any rigid body.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Now listen, though you will understand the mathematics of rigid body theorem at a later stage, but right from the start, we will keep using it. What is this rigid body theorem here? Angular velocity of a body with respect to any point on the rigid body will be the same. Angular velocity of the body with respect to any point of the body will be the same. I'll put it in the simplest possible language. For a person in India or for a person on the other side of the globe, say US, time taken for Earth to complete one rotation will always be 24 hours. Whether you are standing in India or in US, time taken for Earth to complete one rotation will be 24 hours only. You go to the North Pole, exactly North Pole, stand with your hands stretched. You will take 24 hours to complete a rotation. Stand exactly at the North Pole with your hands stretched. You will take 24 hours to complete your rotation. So wherever you are on Earth, time taken by Earth to complete one rotation will be 24 hours. So what are you trying to say? Angular velocity of a rigid body with respect to any point on the body will be 24 hours always. Consider this. There is an ant on my shirt and there is an ant on my hand. There is an ant on my shirt and an ant on my hand. When I rotate this by an angle of theta, the angular displacement reported by both the ants will be the same. In the same time. So angular velocity will be reported to be the same. I keep my hand stretched. There is an ant on my shirt and there is an ant on my hand. I rotate my hand by 90 degrees. Angular displacement reported by both the ants will be the same in the same time. So angular velocity is the same. So angular velocity of a body with respect to any point of the body will be the same. Make a note of it. This is called rigid body theorem. Write down the statement, rigid body theorem. angular velocity of a body with respect to any point of the body. Angular velocity of a body with respect to any point of the body will be the same. Now listen to the second point. For a body which is subjected to pure rotation or something like this, you know theta, you know t, d theta by dt is omega. Body which is subjected to pure rotation at any instant, d theta by dt is omega. What if it has got translation clubbed with rotation? Are you able to visualize this? This is pure translation. There is no theta. There is no d theta. There is no omega. This is pure translation. But what if it is rotating this way? Are you able to visualize this? It is a combination of rotation and translation. Under those circumstances, how will you calculate omega? This is the way the body is moving. The body is moving this way. Till now, I never had that problem in circular motion. In circular motion, everything was a point object. Any particle was going in a circular path. Here, this moved by a distance of s1, this moved by a distance of s2. This is theta, this is L. This is theta, this is L. This distance is s1 minus s2. Right? Theta, very technically, this is d theta, is s1 minus s2 by L. Omega is d theta by d. S1 minus S2 by d theta dt by L. S1 minus S2 by dt is V1 minus V2 by L. So whenever you want omega, you should know the velocity of 2 points of the body. This is V1, this is V2, and the perpendicular distance between them, V1 minus V2 by L. Whenever you want omega of a body, find out the velocity of 2 points of the body and the perpendicular distance between them. S1 by dt minus S2 by dt is V1 and V2. So if I know the velocity of this as V1, velocity of this as V2, V1 minus V2 divided by L is the value of omega. Take it down till here. I'll take one more example to explain this.
Sir, so this S1 and S2 can be any points on the rod, no?
Any 2 points on the rod. I should only know the perpendicular distance between them.
Okay. Thank you.
And both the velocities should be parallel. If they are not given parallel, resolve them.
Okay. So basically, you're finding angular velocity of rigid bodies, you know?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Noted, sir.
Copied, sir.
Noted, sir.
Sir, 30 seconds, sir. 30 seconds, sir, please. Done, sir. Noted, sir.
Now, if you give me this as V1 and this as V2 and this perpendicular distance as L, omega will again be V1 minus V2 by L. We have no problem with that. Suppose I give you this as V1 and this as alpha, this as V2 and this as beta. Now, this will be V1 cos alpha, this will be V2 cos beta, and the perpendicular distance between them is L. Omega will be V1 cos alpha minus V2 cos beta divided by L. Here I have one more information. For the length of this rigid body to be the same, this will be V1 sin alpha. This will also be V2 sin beta. V1 sin alpha will be equal to V2 sin beta. Along the length of the rod, both the ends should have the same velocity. V1 sin alpha should be equal to V2 sin beta. For the length of the rod to remain constant, this is constraint relation. Now, I am taking an example which you will be able to correlate. This is a thin rod of length L and this is theta. Now this has a velocity of V1, this has a velocity of V2. They are asking you the omega of the rod. The rod is slipping against the wall. They are asking you omega of the rod. I should know the velocity of 2 points on the rod parallel to each other. I should know the velocity of 2 points on the rod parallel to each other. If this is V2, what is the component of V1 in this direction? 0. So V2 and 0 parallel to each other. Omega will be V2 minus 0 divided by, what is the perpendicular distance between them? L sin
L sin theta. L sin theta.
You have given me omega in terms of V2. If I would have asked you omega in terms of V1, then resolve this velocity in this direction. Omega is V1 minus 0 divided by
L cos theta.
L cos theta. दो different omega value report कर रहे हो यार, जबकि rigid body theorem में you told us omega of the rigid body with respect to any point of the body is the same. Can you show us that these both are the same? They both are the same. Have a look at this. If the rod was like this is V2, this is theta, this is theta. This is V2 cos theta. This was V1, 90 minus theta. V1 sin theta. V1 sin theta. V2 cos theta minus V1 sin theta should be 0. I applied constraints. V1 sin theta is moving towards the center of the segment. V2 cos theta is moving away from the center of the segment. So I will get V2 cos theta is equal to V1 sin theta. V1 by cos theta is V2 by sin theta. V1 by cos theta is V2 by sin theta. So angular velocity of this rigid body, whether you take V2 and 0 or V1 and 0 and calculate, which 2 points you took doesn't matter. Till when you apply it properly, you will get the same angular velocity for the rigid body.
Sir, I had a doubt.
Hello?
What if we resolve both the velocities perpendicular to the rod? Even then the omega would come equal, right?
Obviously,
Okay, sir.
you should know the perpendicular distance between the two. So if you are resolving V1 and V2 perpendicular to the rod, the perpendicular distance will be L.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
So,
Ah,
so for calculating omega, the velocities can be in opposite direction also, right?
yeah, not an issue.
So, sir, here,
Minus of minus, minus of minus.
yes, so in this question, can we do like we can rotate V2 by theta in the right and then V1?
Again the same issue. नाक कहाँ पर है यार? यहाँ आपको घुमाना है. जब V2 माइनस V1 बोला है, अगर आपको V1 ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में लेना है तो इट विल बी माइनस V. अब जो सीधी तरफ पूछा हुआ है उसको घुमाओगे आप, इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेड. If they give you V1 in the opposite direction, resolve it this side with a negative sign. V1 minus V2 by L will be omega.
Okay, sir.
Done, sir. Wait, sir, 1 minute.
Wait, sir.
Somebody is asking, should we put a mod for omega? Listen, if we am taking this minus this, that means it is clockwise. If I am taking this minus this, then it is anti-clockwise. I repeat, have a look at it. If V1 cos alpha is greater than V2 cos beta, body is rotating in this way clockwise. If V2 cos beta is greater than V1 cos alpha, body is rotating anti-clockwise.
Noted, sir.
Noted, sir.
Now we go to the next step. We have to introduce something called torque. Torque by definition is moment of force. Torque by definition is moment of force. Torque is represented by this symbol tau, R cross F. Moment arm, ARM. Whenever moment of comes, then R cross F. R cross F. In days to come, we will define moment of momentum, R cross P. Moment of force, R cross F. Moment of force, R cross F. In days to come, we'll define moment of momentum. It will be R cross P. Right? Torque is equal to R cross F. Newton meter. Right? Now, how do you get this calculation? Suppose I want a body mass M subjected to a force this way. This is our torque about O will be R cross F, R F sin theta, R sin theta into F. R sin theta into F. Angle between R and F. Angle between R and F is theta. Can I call this to be R sin theta? This is R, this is theta. Will this be R sin theta?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
This will be R perpendicular into F. Hereafter, this is what we will do. Whenever I want to take the torque about a point, extend the line of action of the force and drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Extend the line of action of the force and drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance is the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance is the torque. Extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance will be the torque. You mean to say, if I were to take, there is a mass small m here and there is a force F acting on it this way. I want the torque about O. You are trying to tell me extend the line of action of the force. Yes, drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Yes, extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Force into R perpendicular will be the torque about O. Because this will be sin theta, this will be theta, R sin theta is this value. This is R sin theta. Hence, procedure to be followed, extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance will be the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance will be the torque. consider it the other way around. Suppose you are dealing with small m, this is the force, this is m. I want torque about O dash. Could you tell me what is the torque about O dash?
Zero.
Zero.
Because
R perpendicular.
will become zero.
Perpendicular.
Extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it from O dash. That R perpendicular distance will be zero. Then we need to know how to decide clockwise and anti-clockwise. I'll explain, take it down till here.
So one doubt over here, we are only talking about the magnitude of the torque, right?
Naturally, I didn't speak about the direction. I told you I will speak about the direction now.
Okay, sir.
Obviously, it's the magnitude that we are talking.
So what if F is parallel to the point O, then what will be the torque?
Last example, देखो.
So parallel as in parallel to y-axis.
Parallel to y-axis. Extend and drop a perpendicular on. You want torque about which
Oh no,
point?
no, got it. Sir.
Sir, can you repeat what you said about projecting the force, which you said earlier?
Write down the statement, I dictate. After taking it down till here, I dictate the statement. Write down.
Yes,
First,
sir.
take it down.
So why did T naught dash be equal to 0? Could you explain once?
What dash is
The
torque
torque.
about O dash.
Yes,
R
sir.
perpendicular is 0. When you extend F, it is passing through O dash. So what is the perpendicular distance dropped from O dash? 0.
Okay. Got it.
Oh.
Got it.
Noted, sir.
Noted, sir.
Note. Write down the note. Extend the line of action of the force. Write down the statement. Extend the line of action of the force. Extend the line of action of the force. And drop a perpendicular on it. And drop a perpendicular on it. From the point drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which torque is to be taken. From the point about which torque is to be taken. Full stop. Force into this perpendicular distance is the torque. Force into this perpendicular distance is the torque. Force into this perpendicular distance is the torque. Now, have a look at this. How do you decide clockwise and anti-clockwise? Sign convention, generally people take anti-clockwise as negative, clockwise as positive. You can take the reverse. It's more like saying everything in the upward direction is positive, downward is negative. We have seen so many situations where we took upwards negative and downwards positive. Nothing wrong. I'll take clockwise positive, anti-clockwise negative. Nothing wrong. Just stick to one sign convention till the end of the problem. In between the problem, you cannot change the sign convention. It will be a huge problem. Right? Second, clockwise and anti-clockwise. Connect these both points by a rigid body. Point at which the force is acting and the point about which you are taking the torque. Point at which force is acting is free to move in that direction. Is this body rotating in clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
Clockwise.
This will be clockwise torque. This will be clockwise torque. Connect these both points by a rigid body. Point about which you are taking the torque is fixed. Point at which the force is acting is free to move in the direction. If the body rotates in clockwise, it will be a clockwise torque. If the body rotates in anti-clockwise, it will be an anti-clockwise torque.
Clockwise.
I will take one more example here. Somebody asked, what if the force is parallel to y-axis? This is the force. I am taking R this way. How do I take the torque about to extend the line of action of the force? Drop a perpendicular on it. If I take this to be theta, F into R cos theta. Extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it. Force into this perpendicular distance. Call it R perpendicular. Because technically this will be theta. This is theta, this is theta, this will be R sin theta. Torque is R cross F. Theta should be the angle between R and F. Theta should be the angle between R and F. So extend the line of action of the force. Drop a perpendicular on it from the point about which you are taking the torque. Force into the perpendicular distance. Now verify if it is clockwise or anti-clockwise.
Anti.
Anti-clockwise.
Anti-clockwise, right? This will be in anti-clockwise. This will be clockwise.
So it's basically like taking gravity upward positive, downward negative, downward positive, upward negative. Similar, no, sir?
Gravity, I have never a choice. Gravity is always in the downward direction. You take downward, upward, positive, negative is your choice. But gravity will always be downwards. Downwards अपने positively or negatively is your choice.
Okay, that only.
how did you decide that the particle is moving clockwise or anti because of the force? I'm not able to understand.
This is anti-clockwise torque. Torque will be I alpha is a different subject. Is the torque clockwise or anti-clockwise? How will the particle or the body move is a different topic. Right now, understand if the torque is anti-clockwise or clockwise. Is this torque clockwise or anti-clockwise?
They're basically right hand thumb rule, no, that you taught in vectors.
Wait, don't mess up with so many things like right hand thumb rule is R cross F. Official direction of torque I'll get outwards when it is anti-clockwise, inwards when it is clockwise. Right now I didn't refer to that. I'll come to that. Right now he's asking how do you know which direction will the particle move? We haven't come till there also.
Okay.
All that I have explained is this torque clockwise or anti-clockwise? This torque is clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Anti-clockwise.
Anti-clockwise.
Right.
Anti-clockwise.
There can be n number of forces acting on the particle. So net torque we take and then we decide if it is moving in clockwise or anti-clockwise. We are yet to come till there.
Sir, what did you say about theta? It is the angle between.
Angle between R and F.
Okay.
Theta should be the angle between R and F.
Sir, so basically, see in direct, you have to observe it and see the answer, no?
Observe.
Sir, do you mind explaining either of the figures again? Because I'm not able to get in what basis it is anti-clockwise and or clockwise. Just any one of the figures, it's fine.
Point about which you are taking the torque is fixed. Point at which the force is acting is free to move in this direction. Is this body rotating in clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise. Clockwise. Okay, sir, got it.
Here this body is rotating in anti-clockwise.
Anti-clockwise.
Now, consider an example like this. This is a ladder. This is a ladder kept against a wall. Let us learn how to take the torque equation. Now, to take a torque equation, you have to draw the free body diagram and all the forces acting on it. This is mg, this is n1, this is n. This angle is theta. Right? I'll call this point P. Friction is acting inwards. This ladder will have a tendency to slip this way. The ladder will be slipping this way. So this point friction will act in the opposite direction. Right? This point will be slipping towards the right. Friction will act in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Now I am taking the torque about point P. Which all points do you think I can take the torque? I'll let you know which all points. Right? I'll let you know. Torque about point P right now. N1 into perpendicular distance is 0. If force is passing through that point, torque about that point is 0. Plus friction into 0. Friction is also passing through that point. Till here, is everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
N1 and friction are passing through that point. So torque due to both the forces about that point is 0. Now consider mg. Extend the line of action of mg and drop a perpendicular on it from the point P. It will be mg into this perpendicular distance L by 2 cos theta. Anti-clockwise, I will take negative. This is anti-clockwise torque. Observe this. Is everybody getting why this is anti-clockwise?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And magnitude, how did you get? Extend the line of action of MD. Drop a perpendicular on it from the point P. Mg into the perpendicular distance is L by 2 cos theta less N2 into the perpendicular distance is L sin theta. N2 into the perpendicular distance, extend the line of action of N2 into this perpendicular distance is L sin theta clockwise. N2 will produce a clockwise torque. N2 connect these both points by rigid body. Point about which you are taking the torque is fixed. Point at which the force is acting is free to move in that direction. Is this body rotating in clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
Positive. I took clockwise as positive. Mg is producing anti-clockwise. Mg is producing anti-clockwise. Mg into L by 2 cos theta. This is the net total torque on the ladder due to all the forces acting on it. But this is the torque about point P. If you take torque about some other point, the value may be different. Which all points you are eligible to take the torque will be explained in the third or fourth lecture from now. Till then, just follow whichever point I am telling you to select.
So won't there be a friction along the y-axis also?
I took the wall to be smooth.
Okay, sir.
Copied, sir.
Wait, sir, wait, sir.
1 minute.
Now, firstly, now that we have learned how to take the torque equation, let us apply and see. In circular motion, when you took a car taking a turn, you considered the car to be a point object. In circular motion, when you took a car taking a turn, you considered the car to be a point object. You didn't consider that to be
Point of
a
view.
rigid body. Now observe this. You are seeing the car going into the board. You are seeing the car going into the board. This is N1, this is N2. This is mg. Friction provides the required centripetal force, mv square by r. N1 is the normal force on the inner wheels. N2 is the normal force on the outer wheels. N1 is the normal force on the inner wheels. N2 is the normal force on the outer wheels. The distance between the wheels is 2a. The distance between the wheels is 2a. Right? The vehicle is going into the board this way. The vehicle is going into the board this way. Right? Who is providing the centripetal force? Friction. Firstly, these are the inner wheels, these are the outer wheels. You are seeing the back part of it. This will be the inner wheel, this will be the outer wheel. Till here, is it clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now you don't want the vehicle to topple. You didn't deal with the toppling conditions in circular motion. Yeah. Circular motion, your vehicle was a point object. It cannot topple. Today you have given dimensions to your vehicle. You are telling me h is the height of the center of mass. 2a is the distance between the two tires. Today your vehicle has got dimensions. Circular motion, your vehicle was a point object. N1 plus N2 is equal to mg. All forces in upward direction will be equal to forces in
Onward
downward
direction.
direction. Right? Friction provides the required centripetal force. Second equation. It's a horizontal ground. It's a horizontal surface. Now, you don't want the vehicle to topple, so net torque should be zero about the center of mass. You do not want the vehicle to topple, so net torque about the center of mass will be zero. Observe this carefully. Extend the line of action of N1 and drop a perpendicular on it. N1 into A. Clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
Clockwise.
Now N2, extend the line of action of N2 and drop a perpendicular on it. N2 into A.
Anti-clockwise.
Clockwise positive, anti-clockwise negative. Mg is passing through the center of mass. Perpendicular distance is 0. Now friction. Extend the line of action of friction and drop a perpendicular on it. Friction into H. And that will be clockwise.
Yes, sir.
Net total torque, I want it to be 0. I don't want the vehicle to topple. This is my third equation. N1 minus N2. I take this to the right. Friction is mv square by r into h. This friction is mv square by r. I substituted here and I took it to the right. This is E.
So divide by
Divide by
A
A.
also, no?
Divide by
Divide by
A.
A.
Divide by A. Perfect. Now when you add both of them, N1 is mg minus mv square mg by 2 2Ra into H. I want to verify at what velocity will normal force become 0. By the way, N1 is this. What will N2 be equal to? It is mg minus N1. So it will be mg by 2 plus mv square H by 2R. So from here,
Times joke.
understand that N2 can never be 0. N2 is the sum of two quantities, positive quantities. Outer wheels will never take off from the ground. If ever it is taking a turn this way, it will be the inner wheels which will take off from the ground. If ever a vehicle is taking a turn this way, it will be the inner wheels which will take off from the ground, not the outer wheels. I can use common sense to make a guess with that. When you bank a road, you are raising the outer side, right? If really outer wheels were to take off from the ground, now that you banked the road, 100% vehicle will top. Hence, outer wheels will never leave contact with the ground. It is the inner wheels. That's why when you bank a road, you are providing additional security to the inner wheels. N1 can become 0. N2 can never become 0. Outer wheels can never take off from the ground. So, at what velocity will it become 0? N1 is 0. mg by 2 is mv square H by 2Ra. H is equal to rad, V is equal to rad by H with a square root. This is the maximum speed with which you can take a turn without toppling. This is the maximum speed with which you can take a turn without toppling. How do you interpret this result? Observe this carefully. Greater the radius, greater is the speed with which you can take a turn, right? Observe this. If this is the track, your vehicle will generally go from this side. It will try to take the maximum radius possible. Don't you think it is increased the radius? It will never go from the inner side. Formula 1 racing, if you people observe, they will never leave the outer edge to their competitor. They'll always keep the outer edge to themselves. They'll immediately take a turn like this. Why? They increase the radius of the circular track. Greater the radius, greater will be the velocity with which you can take a turn. Second, distance between the tires. If you people observe, in Formula 1 racing, he will sit in a small cockpit type of a structure and the wheels will be at that distance. If permitted, they'll occupy whole of the track. So they put a limitation on. Greater the distance between the tires, greater A is half the distance between the tires. Greater the distance between the tires, greater will be the velocity with which you take a turn. Observe this. When you deal with an SUV, the distance between the tires is increased. When you deal with an SUV, the distance between the tires is increased because the height is also increased. As the height increases, distance between the tires will increase. As the height increases, distance between the tires will increase. Right? So, it should be of a greater distance to take a turn with higher speed. Lesser the height, greater will be the speed with which you can take a turn. Lesser the height, greater will be the speed with which you can take a turn. Observe Formula One racing. The height of the driver's seat will be so very low that when he turns, he'll see both the tires at the same height as that of his. He'll be sitting at 12 inches. Lower part of the seat is at a height of 12 inches from the ground. For security reasons, they made it 12 somewhere in 2010. Till then, it was only 9 inches. They'll keep the driver as low as possible. Lesser the height, greater will be the velocity with which you can take a turn without toppling. See a loaded truck. Loaded truck, a center of mass cannot come down. In any form of an accident with a loaded truck, it will be in a toppled condition. Loaded truck, height will by default go up. So even the slightest mistake by the driver, the truck will get toppled. Lesser the height, greater will be the speed with which you can take a turn. The so-called tall boy model cars. I don't know if you people have seen. Try to Google search these advertisements, you will get to see. Hyundai Santro was the first tall boy compact middle class car in our segments. Hyundai Santro. Tall boy model. Before that, Maruti was rocking all over the country. There were only two cars then, Maruti and Ambassador. Ambassador was a heavy vehicle made of proper iron. Right? Maruti was the first common man's car rather. 800. I don't know if you people ever saw that. Maruti 800. You had to go down to sit. The height was so very less. Worst of the accidents also, it will not be in the toppled condition. If it is crushed into a pulp also, it will not be in toppled condition. Its height was so low. And to sit was very uncomfortable. You had to go down and sit. Once you sit, it's okay. But sitting and coming out of the car was not a comfortable thing. Tall boy model, the first time advertisement from Hyundai. I remember Shah Rukh Khan was the brand ambassador for that. He was standing beside the car and showing the height, tall boy model. The biggest problem with that was it was good and comfortable to sit. The biggest problem was you increased the height. Right? In the worst of the situations, toppling was an issue. So all the other competitors, the main competitor, Maruti showroom, you enter, they'll keep telling you, it's a tall boy model, sir, sitting is comfortable but risky. Now people cannot take a risk. Right? So then what they did is, they again came up with an advertisement stating that the upper part of this material is made of a very light material and the chassis is made heavy. This upper part was made of a light material. Actually, yes. Get on the top of the car and hit with your hand, there will be a dent. This will be made of a light material and the chassis is heavy. So the center of mass will come down. Center of mass comes down, height will come down. Now you can turn the car at a greater speed. But then there was an issue again. Chassis was made heavy. So ground clearance decreased. When your car is going over a speed breaker, the chassis used to scrape through the speed breaker. You could hear the sound of the chassis hitting the speed breaker. So again, they came up with Santro Zing. They made the adjustments with the shape. They increased the ground clearance so that it was at par with the other vehicles. Ideal dimensions of A and H are for a sedan. Ideal dimensions for A and H are for a sedan. The more you increase the height for an SUV, greater should be the distance between the tires. That's why SUV tires also will be wider to increase the effective distance between the two tires. Take it down till here.
Sir,
Switch off the mics for some time. Somebody has typed, what about scooter? I have taken a four-wheeler. Scooter will not have inner wheels and outer wheels. Scooter's toppling conditions are different.
Okay.
कर रहा हूँ आप लोग स्कूटर पूछ रहे हो.
Sir, can you explain how did you obtain the equations for N1 and N2? Just these two, sir. I'm a bit confused.
See the equations on the board. 1, 2, 3. Tell me your doubt in it. I'll explain.
So,
Sir, just the B wala part.
Pardon?
Just the B wala part.
B.
Yeah.
I added from this equation. I took friction to the right. Friction is mv square by r. I took it to the right and brought a to the denominator.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Done, sir. Sir, could you explain the loaded truck part again?
Loaded truck ka height will always be greater. Greater the height, lesser should be the speed with which it takes a turn.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So can you tell how N1 का torque will be clockwise? I'm unable to visualize.
यार इससे ज्यादा स्पून फीडिंग कहाँ होगा यार. अब देखो, you are connecting these both points by rigid body. Yes or no? कुछ तो बोलो.
Got it, sir. Yes, sir.
ये स्टार्टिंग ऑफ द क्लास से वही तो कर रहा हूँ. अब N1 क्लॉकवाइज पूछ रहे हो आप, जबकि दिखा रहा हूँ.
Sir, why have we not taken separate friction for separate wheels? Because the radius will be different, right? In one of them, the radius will be r plus 2.
Direction is the same. Net total friction is taken.
Okay.
Sir, is the lecture over?
1 second. तुम्हें जाना ही जा सकते हो। I'm watching a particular video in which toppling of a truck at high speeds was shown. I remember having shown that sometime back too. I'm unable to trace that video now, which I want to show you people. It shows the toppling of a loaded truck. I'll show it in the next class. See you people in tomorrow's doubt lecture. Good day.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.